Last Thanksgiving, I walked into my mother's house certain it would be the year everything finally felt different. I had news that should have turned the whole day warm and golden. News I'd held close to my chest for weeks like a spark I didn't want the wind to steal. I didn't know I was carrying that spark into a room full of water. Before I tell you what happened, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, you're not alone. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, because the sentence my mother threw across the table that night, it changed everything. My answer changed it even more. My name is Olivia. I'm 32. I'm the middle child. The position in the family photo where your head is perfectly framed by other people's achievements. My brother Alex is the pride of the lineage, a surgeon with a calendar full of banquets and a wrist full of expensive time. My younger sister Sophia is the golden echo that follows him. Litigator, flawless blowout, her life mocked up in navy blue power suits that look like they come with complimentary applause. And then there's me. I work in marketing, a sentence my mother, Patricia, repeats like I once confessed to a minor crime. Pretty pictures and catchy lines, she says when new neighbors ask about her kids. If you listen closely, you can hear the unspoken glossary definition. Not real, not serious, not worth mentioning in the same paragraph as saving lives or winning cases. I sometimes think I learned to anticipate disappointment before I learned long division. When I was 12, Alex won a regional science fair with a project Dad quietly helped him assemble after midnight. He got a sheet cake, a party, and Mom's watery eyes. That same year I placed first in the state for a short story contest. Mom patted my shoulder and said, "It's sweet that you like to write. Maybe one day you'll help your brother with his research papers." I told myself it didn't sting, then felt the sting anyway. There's a pattern to being the child who tries to make up the difference. Little sacrifices that don't look like much in the moment. In high school I learned you could disappear into usefulness. I babysat our cousins, organized pantry shelves before holidays, made lists when anxiety made Mom spiral. If I kept the trains running, maybe someone would notice who was driving them. College didn't change much. I picked a program I loved. Brand strategy, digital storytelling, the alchemy that happens when the right message reaches the right person at the right time. I loved finding the tiny true thing in a clutter of loud almost truths. When I declared my major, Mom's face arranged itself into the polite smile you wear at a funeral for someone you didn't know. "Marketing," she said as if trying a strange word in her mouth. "Well, at least it's practical. Until you figure out what you really want." What I wanted was to be seen. What I settled for was being helpful. After graduation I took the first job I could get at a small agency on the east side. I stayed late, burned through weekends, learned to see opportunity in the blank space everyone else ignored. I wasn't saving lives or winning cases. But I watched a family-owned bakery grow from 3 employees to 15 because of a campaign I built from scratch. And when the owner hugged me at the ribbon cutting, I had to pretend I got sawdust in my eye. I called home that night to tell Mom. "That's nice," she said. "Did I tell you Alex is presenting at a conference in Zurich? Your sister's firm thinks she could make partner by 30. You can measure your life in hours. Mine could be measured in comparisons. If I brought homemade pecan pie, it was too sweet. If Sophia brought a store-bought pumpkin pie, it was so thoughtful. If I arrived 5 minutes late because I helped a neighbor carry groceries upstairs, we had talks about time management. If Alex breezed in an hour behind schedule, the turkey waited in a warm oven because a doctor's time isn't his own. I want to tell you I never kept score. I want to tell you I was noble above it. But the truth is, some nights I would lie awake and catalog every time I said yes when no would have saved me. The weekends I sacrificed to help repaint the living room before Mom's book club. The week I took off to stay with Grandma Eleanor after her hip replacement while my siblings couldn't get away. The countless errands run in the margins of my life so someone else could keep theirs ineffably tidy. And still I told myself this is love. Love is service. Love is patience. Love is the quiet glue that doesn't ask for credit. Then life shifted under my feet in the best possible way. In early October, Liam took my hand on a ridge above the river where autumn had set the trees on fire. We'd been together 2 years, the kind of 2 years that smoothed your rough edges without making you invisible. He teaches English, which means he knows how to hold a silence still enough for truth to float to the surface. He slid a simple ring onto my finger and asked if I wanted to spend the rest of my life being seen. I said yes with my whole body. A week later my manager called me into her office and shut the door with the smile that means something you worked for finally caught up with you. You've been doing the work of a lead strategist for months, she said. Let's make the title match. A raise, a team accounts with real breadth. I rode the elevator down feeling taller. I didn't tell my family. Not yet. I pictured it all at once. The table dressed in Mom's sunflower runner, the steam from the mashed potatoes fogging the air above the serving spoons, the sharp, happy sound of Grandma's laugh when the cranberry sauce holds its shape leaving the can. I'd wait until dessert, until the second wave of contentment, and then I'd lay 2 bright cards down on the table. I'm engaged. I got promoted. It would be the scene in a movie where the music swells and the camera finds the mother's face softened by pride, the daughter finally reflected whole in her eyes. I mixed that fantasy like batter. I baked it. I iced it with careful hope. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Mom called to discuss place settings. Bring the green salad, she said. Nothing heavy. We'll have enough carbs. Then, as if she'd remembered an errand halfway through a thought, and wear the navy dress from Easter. It doesn't wash you out like the lighter colors do. I have a new dress I love, I said. It's a deep forest green. A beat. You can get away with that in dim lighting. But we eat in daylight, Olivia. I told myself she meant well. I told myself all the things you tell yourself so the small cuts don't bleed on the nice tablecloth. On Thanksgiving morning I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and twisted my hair into a low knot. The ring's small diamond caught the light from the window, blinking like a secret. I tucked it on a chain around my neck. I wanted the announcement, not the appetizer. Liam kissed my temple and said, "Text me when you've done it. I'll be with Mom, but I'll keep my phone on loud." He knew this mattered. He knew why. The drive to my parents' house is 30 minutes of 2-lane road flanked by trees that were mostly bare now, their leaves gathered to the sides like the skirts of women resting. By the time I pulled into the driveway, Alex's Tesla already claimed the spot nearest the porch. Sophia's SUV was straight in the middle, a line drawn like ownership. Inside the house smelled like butter and sage. The good plates were out. Grandma Eleanor was stationed at the end of the kitchen island with a glass of iced tea that would steadily become mostly ice if someone didn't keep an eye on it. Dad moved through the rooms with the quiet competence of a stagehand, trailing extension cords and taking coats. He saw me and his face softened. "There's my Liv," he said, opening his arms. "Traffic okay?" "Perfect," I said into his shoulder. "Need me to do anything?" He glanced toward the kitchen. "Your mother's orchestrating. Maybe take the rolls out of the freezer? She wants them thawed but not soft, which is a spiritual condition, I think." I laughed and went to exchange battlefield pleasantries with the general. Mom was at the stove with 3 burners going. Her red apron read "Bless this mess" in a font that implied the mess was theoretical. "You're late," she said without looking up. "I'm right on time. We've already set the table. Try not to bump it when you put the salad down. And put the pecans on at the very last minute. They get soggy." "Got it." She turned then, eyes flicking over me like a scanner at a checkout lane. "You wore the green." She didn't say it like a question. I did. I smiled. "I like how it makes me feel." She made a non-committal noise and reached for the oven mitts. "Sophia's dress is perfect. It's so hard to find clothes that look expensive without being vulgar these days, but she has an instinct, you know?" "She does," I said because fighting over adjectives felt like trying to thread a needle in an earthquake. The morning moved forward like a parade you can't get out of. Alex wandered in to taste gravy, declared it undersalted, and then let Mom catch him fixing it so she could thank him with shining eyes. Sophia took a video of the table and said into her phone, "Grateful for family," in the exact tone of voice you use when you know you'll need proof later. When I offered to refill the pitcher, Mom handed me the butter dish instead. "At least you won't drop this," she said lightly, and I wondered when my hands became a punchline. If you've ever felt your edges get fuzzy in a room where you're supposed to be known, leave a comment. I wish I could tell you I brushed it off. Mostly I did what I always do, found the empty spaces and filled them. I kept an eye on the timer, slid baking sheets in and out, listened for the oven's impatient beep and answered it before anyone else heard it call. The only person who seemed to see me seeing everything was Grandma. She watched the choreography with her wise, bird-bright eyes and patted the stool beside her. "Sit," she said. 5 minutes. Your mother won't combust. I Saturday, no promises. He squeezed my fingers. You look beautiful, she said. Like yourself. Thank you. You've been lighter lately, she added, testing the word. Like you put something heavy down in a room I can't see. There are people who don't ask and somehow still know. I felt the heat rise under my skin. My hand went automatically to my throat, to the chain hiding my secret. I'm happy, I said, and it was both the smallest and truest thing I could offer. Her smile reached the corners of her eyes. Good. Keep some of it for yourself. By the time Dad called everyone to the table, I'd located the sweet spot between calm and bracing. I could hold both. I could be the person who passed the yams and also the person who had something to say when it was time. We took our places in the formation etched by years of repetition. Alex at Mom's right hand. Sophia opposite where the light caught the angles of her face just so. I sat midway down the long side between my teenage cousins who smelled faintly of body spray and hope. Dad lifted his glass and asked us to name one thing we were grateful for this year. Alex went first, his research getting funded. Sophia went next, her team's big win, a career-making case. Mom blessed the food, then blessed the hands that prepared it, and then, as if remembering an afterthought, added, and Olivia's salad. Laughter, not unkind but not kind either. When it came to me, I said the safe thing. I'm grateful for steady work. Good friends. My voice was level. My heart tripped. Dessert. I told myself. Wait for dessert. We ate. The room hummed with the kind of conversation that sounds like contentment if you don't listen too hard. Dad told a story about a ridiculous customer at the hardware store. Alex explained something about a laparoscopic technique and turned a roll into a model of a human abdomen. Sophia recapped a deposition like it was Broadway. I touched the little square box in my purse like a talisman. I thought about Liam's voice, low and steady. You don't have to make them understand to be real. But some part of me had been stretching toward this day the way sunflowers stretch for light. I wanted it even if I couldn't admit how much. When the plates were cleared, I stood to gather the pie. Mom's hand came down lightly on my wrist. Don't cut slices too big, she murmured. Some of us are still minding our figures. Some of us, I said softly, like pie. Her mouth pressed into a coin-thin line. Don't be difficult, Olivia. I carried the pumpkin pie to the sideboard and inhaled once, twice. The way you do before diving. I set the knife down. I moved back to my seat. I folded my napkin open on my lap like a flag of truce. And then I lifted my head to speak. But before the words could cross the room, my mother's voice did. She smiled a smile that showed every tooth. Her fork clicked against her plate like a metronome. Before dessert, she said, I'd like to say how proud I am of my children. He turned to Alex. Our doctor. To Sophia. Our future partner. Then her eyes flicked to me, and for just a second, I saw something hard glitter there, like a stone at the bottom of shallow water. This year, she continued, some of us have really made the family proud. I closed my hand around the napkin until the fabric creased. This was the moment I had chosen for joy. It was already tilting toward something else. I was still going to try. I would. I had to. If you've ever timed your good news to a room that didn't want to hear it, you know how a throat can feel too small. Actually, I began. But that sentence, my sentence, would have to wait. Because the one my mother was about to say would ricochet off every wall in that dining room and stitch itself into the story of my life. From the outside, my family looked glossy. Doctor son, lawyer daughter, respectable parents with a tidy house and a tradition of expensive wine at holidays. But peel back the wrapping paper and you'd see something else. Debt, panic, emergencies. Who do you think answered the phone every time there was a late-night crisis? It wasn't Alex. He was busy in the OR. It wasn't Sophia. She was juggling court briefs and social calendars. It was me. I was the one who transferred $1,200 so Mom's car wouldn't get repossessed when Dad's hardware store had a bad quarter. I was the one who maxed out my credit card to help cover Dad's surgery gap when insurance didn't quite stretch. I told myself I was doing what families do. But really? I was doing what I do, stepping in, staying silent, hoping one day someone would notice. But even as I thought it, I felt the cracks forming. The way Mom's compliments flowed toward Alex and Sophia like rivers that had never once changed course. The way she brushed off my carefully chosen gifts in the morning. The way her tone sharpened when she glanced at my green dress. It was all familiar. Too familiar. And still I clutched that little box in my purse. I held the ring like a secret lifeline, because I needed to believe I could finally belong. But belonging was not what I was about to get. Because just as I gathered my courage to speak, just as dessert plates were being cleared and I touched the chain around my neck for strength, my mother leaned back in her chair, wine glass in hand, eyes glinting with that cold satisfaction I knew too well. And with the entire family watching, she smiled thinly and said, "Olivia, you are a complete disappointment to this family." The room froze. Forks clinked down. My chest went hollow. She said it smoothly, the way some people set down a wine glass. Deliberate, calm, certain it will not spill. Grandma Eleanor's lips pressed together, her sharp eyes narrowing in disgust. Even Alex looked startled, his surgeon's composure cracking. "Sophia, ever the P. Me?" I didn't cry. Not this time. My pulse thudded, yes, but beneath it ran something steadier than fear. I knew what they were waiting for. They expected the old Olivia. The one who would force a smile, make a joke, change the subject. The one who swallowed the sting and later went home to cry quietly where no one could see. Almost did it. My throat shaped the words, "It's fine, Mom," out of sheer habit. But then my hand brushed the chain around my neck. The ring hidden there, the promise of a life where I was more than invisible. And I thought of every bank transfer, every emergency loan, every moment I gave without acknowledgement. Something inside me refused to stay silent anymore. I set my fork down gently, almost ceremoniously. Then I pushed my chair back just enough that the scrape of wood on tile cut through the hush. "If I'm such a disappointment," I said, my voice steady in a way that startled even me, "then maybe you should stop calling me every time you need money." The words landed like a stone dropped in a still pond. Ripples shot outward, shock on Alex's face, a sharp intake of breath from my Aunt Susan, my father's glass stopping halfway to his lips. Mom's smile faltered for the first time that evening. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice higher, tighter. "Oh, don't act surprised," I said. 2 years of monthly car payments, Dad's surgery bills, Sophia's bar exam fees, and yes, Alex's student loan defaults. Do I need to keep going? My hand moved toward my purse, fingers brushing the phone that held all the receipts, all the numbers. "You wouldn't," Mom hissed, low enough for only the closest to hear. But my voice rose so the entire table could. "I would. And I will if you want proof." Alex blinked hard, his usual confidence replaced with confusion. "Wait, you paid my loans?" I thought. Sophia set down her fork with a clatter. "You paid for my exam?" "Mom told me." "Exactly," I cut in, the anger sharp but clean. "Mom told you what she wanted you to hear. Meanwhile, the so-called disappointment has been the one propping this family up." For a moment, the only sound was the faint crackle of the fireplace. My mother sat rigid, lips parted but no words coming. She looked around the table as if searching for an ally, but even her own siblings avoided her gaze. And then Grandma Eleanor leaned forward, her voice slicing the tension like a knife. "Patricia, you should be ashamed." Her words rang louder than any toast or prayer. The room was already stunned from my first words, but silence can be deceiving. Silence isn't peace, it's a vacuum waiting to be filled. And I was finally ready to fill it. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My fingers didn't shake. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of their eyes on me. I wanted them to look. "Since you all seem confused," I said, unlocking the banking app, "let me refresh your memory." I tilted the screen toward the light so everyone could see the rows of transactions. September 12, 2021, $1,200 transfer to Patricia Miller for car payment. November 3, 2021, $3,000 to Robert Miller for surgery costs. February 8, 2022, $2,400 to Sophia Miller for bar exam fees. June 15, 2022, $4,000 to cover Alex Miller's student loan default. I scrolled slowly, deliberately, each line like a nail hammered into the coffin of Mom's carefully curated narrative. "Would you like me to keep going?" I asked, looking straight at my mother. Alex's face had gone pale, his jaw slack. "Olivia, I swear I didn't know. I thought Mom and Dad." "Of course you didn't know," I cut in. "Because Mom told me to keep it quiet. To protect your pride." Sophia's manicured fingers gripped the edge of her plate. "I never asked you to pay my fees." "No," I said, voice sharp as glass. You just let me believe it was my duty while you sipped cocktails in Paris. Her lips parted but no words came. For once the lawyer had no defense. Dad turned slowly toward Mom. His face looked older, heavier. Patricia, is this true? Mom's mouth opened and closed. It's not what it looks like. She was just helping temporarily. 2 years of temporarily, I snapped. 2 years of me living paycheck to paycheck while you drove around in the car I paid for, calling me a disappointment. Dad's hand dropped from his wine glass. Patricia, he said again, but softer, broken. Grandma Eleanor leaned forward, her cane tapping once against the floor. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades. I have sat at this table long enough to know when someone is lying, Patricia. And what I see now is not just lying. It is cruelty. This girl has been carrying all of you and you've been spitting on her while she did it. The words landed like judgment, final and ringing. My mother's eyes flickered with something I had never seen before. Panic. I stood taller, holding the phone like a torch. You want to know why Liam proposed to me? Why he looks at me like I'm the best thing that ever happened to him? Because he sees me. He knows I've been the backbone of this family while being treated like its weakest link. He knows the so-called disappointment is the only reason any of you have stayed afloat. I swept my gaze across the table. You've called me invisible, useless, a failure. But without me, Alex's loans would have swallowed him. Without me, Sophia wouldn't have passed the bar. Without me, Mom wouldn't have had her precious car to drive. Without me, Dad's surgery would have left you drowning in debt. I took a breath, feeling 32 years of swallowed words finally burn free. So if I'm such a disappointment, congratulations. As of today, the Bank of Olivia is closed. The words cracked through the room like a thunderclap. Dad stared at Mom as if seeing her for the first time. Alex bowed his head in shame. Sophia blinked back tears. Grandma's gaze held nothing but fierce pride for me. And my mother? She sat frozen, her carefully painted mask collapsing. But what she said next would ignite chaos I never imagined. The silence didn't last. Silence never lasts in a family built on secrets. It started with my Aunt Susan's gasp, sharp as broken glass. Patricia, how could you? She blurted, looking at my mother like she was a stranger. Uncle Frank slammed his fork down so hard the china rattled. We've been sitting here all these years listening to you brag about your kids, and the one you called a failure is the only one keeping this family afloat? Unbelievable. Mom's lips trembled. This is not the place. Oh, this is exactly the place, Grandma Eleanor cut in, her voice low but firm. You had no problem humiliating Olivia in front of all of us. Now you can wear the truth in front of us too. Dad looked broken. His eyes never left Mom's face. You made me believe we were barely holding on. You told me not to worry, that you had it under control. All this time it was Olivia? Our Olivia. Mom tried to speak, but he raised a hand. No. Don't twist it. Don't spin it. For once, just admit what you've done. Her eyes darted, searching for an ally, but none came. Alex cleared his throat, voice unsteady. Olivia, I didn't know. If you had what? I cut in. You would have stepped in. You would have defended me when Mom called me useless. He flinched. His surgical hands, usually steady, fidgeted against the linen napkin. I should have noticed. Noticing would have been a start, I said, the bitterness undeniable. Sophia's eyes filled, tears threatening her perfect eyeliner. I swear, Olivia, I didn't know you paid for my exam. If I'd known. You'd what? My voice rose, sharp and cutting. You'd have skipped Paris? You'd have called me instead of assuming someone else would clean up the mess? You didn't know because you didn't want to know. Her tears spilled then, and for a fleeting second I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered the years of silence, the endless comparisons. I stayed firm. Grandma Eleanor leaned heavily on her cane and stood, an act that commanded silence better than any shout. I've lived long enough to know gratitude when I see it, she said, her voice trembling not from weakness but fury. And Patricia, you have none. You let this girl bleed herself dry to keep your family standing, and you spat in her face while she did it. Shame on you. The room went still. Even the fire seemed to quiet, as though listening. I looked around the table at faces that had always seemed so certain, so superior. Now they looked small, diminished. I'm done, I said simply. Done fixing, done covering, done being your safety net. You wanted to know what disappointment looks like? It looks like a woman finally realizing she doesn't owe you her silence anymore. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. My hand brushed the little velvet box still tucked in my purse. I thought of Liam, of the life waiting for me outside this suffocating room. As I turned for the door, my mother's voice cracked through the silence. Olivia, wait. We can talk about this, privately. I stopped, hand on the knob. Then I turned back one last time. Privately. I repeated. No. You made my shame public for years. Tonight you get your truth the same way. And with that I walked out, leaving stunned silence and shattered illusions behind me. But the story didn't end there. Because the next day when the phone started ringing and the fallout truly began, I realized freedom doesn't come quietly. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped out of the house, carrying nothing but my purse and the weight I had finally dropped. Behind me, voices rose in muffled arguments. My mother's shrill defense, my father's disbelief, Alex and Sophia trying to reconcile the truth with the fantasy they had lived in. But I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for leaving them behind. The drive was quiet, just the hum of tires against asphalt and the faint buzz of my phone vibrating nonstop in the passenger seat. Calls from my mother, texts from my father, even a few from Sophia. All unanswered. I kept my hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road ahead. In the reflection of the windshield, I saw not a disappointment, not an invisible middle child, but a woman who had finally spoken her truth. It was almost startling how light that felt. The fallout came fast. By morning I had 3 voicemails from Mom. The first was furious, calling me vindictive. The second was defensive. Families help each other, Olivia, you're making this bigger than it is. The third was softer, almost panicked. Please don't ruin this family. Dad's message was different. Quiet. Apologetic. I'm so sorry, Liv. I should have seen it. I should have stopped it. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Alex's text was one line. I owe you more than I can ever repay. Sophia's, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. But I didn't answer. Not yet. Dad, I spent the day with Liam. We walked by the river where he'd proposed, my hand snug in his. I told him everything, every dollar, every secret, every time I thought I could buy my mother's approval. He listened, his thumb brushing my knuckles, eyes steady on mine. You don't have to buy love anymore, Liv, he said. Not from me. Not from anyone. And for the first time I believed him. That weekend I sat at my desk and canceled the automatic transfers that had been bleeding my account for 2 years. I deleted Mom's saved payment details. I wrote a single sentence on a sticky note and pressed it to the wall above my laptop. The Bank of Olivia is permanently closed. It wasn't just about money. It was about boundaries. About finally choosing myself. Weeks later, when Christmas came and the invitations went out, I didn't go. I spent the holiday in a cabin with Liam, snow falling outside, laughter warm between us. My family had their dinner without me, and for once I didn't feel the ache of being absent. Because I wasn't absent. I was present, fully, finally, in my own life. They called me a disappointment. They called me invisible. But in the end, the only thing disappointing was how little they understood who I really was. Now they do. And so do I. If you were in my place, would you forgive them, or walk away for good? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting back. It's living free.